What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what the news is saying about the markets, what you should be watching for as time progresses, and also some very important economic data coming out very soon for tomorrow. But before I break things down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. Looking at NIO, we're down 2.89% for the day thus far. And the question is, what's going to happen as time progresses from here? I'll be breaking this down over the next couple of minutes. So, NIO has been dropping very, very hard, and we're actually seeing other stocks kind of following the trend. But what's very important to note is the fact that NIO has external factors affecting it. So, unfortunately, on the 4-hour time frame, NIO is looking very weak right now. We're continuing to reject off the 20 EMA on the 4-hour time frame, and we're continuing to downtrend very, very hard. So the share price is still looking very weak. Now, there are other pieces of news that will affect the market, but I do want to note that NIO is approaching some critical support at that $5 area, also at 4.8. But as NIO is continuing to downtrend, as the trend is still favoring the bears, I want to talk about something else that's very important. So let's first talk about Tuesday, which is going to be tomorrow, February 6th. Basically, at 10 o'clock a.m., we have the Economic Optimism Index reports coming out. We're expecting this to be between 45.2 and 47.2. And we'll be watching to see how this ends up looking. This is going to be very important, so watch and see what kind of volatility this causes for the markets. And then at 11 o'clock a.m., we have the total household debt coming out for Q4. So we'll be watching that as well. So basically at 10 a.m., we have some data. 11 a.m., the data is kind of minor. Then after that, it's just a bunch of Fed speakers. We have Mester, Kashkari, and Collins from the Fed all giving their speeches. So I'll be watching those carefully to see what they end up saying. And besides that, after around 10 or 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, everything becomes very minor. So it's not really much for tomorrow. It's not going to be a heavy data day. Then after that, when it comes to earnings, don't forget tomorrow we have Spotify, we have Hertz, we also have Snap after the market closes alongside Ford if you're interested in playing that. So watch those very carefully. I do want to call out that after the market closes, we basically, or at least for today, we just had Palantir. So right here, Palantir just announced their earnings right now. This was after market close, and they did relatively well. You could see the share price is up 19% after their Q4 earnings. They basically saw a revenue increase of 20% year over year. And on top of this, their EPS was as expected. The revenue was a little bit better than expected, and we're seeing very nice, consistent growth. Also, their full year guidance for 2024 was in line with Wall Street's estimates. So that's why it ended up pumping. On top of this, when it comes to NIO, I'm not really seeing anything new on NIO's Twitter page. I do want to note that when it comes to their deliveries, I'm not as excited for the month of February, if I'm going to be honest with you, because Lunar New Year is coming, and that tends to be a slower period for sales. Also, what is good, however, is the fact that NIO is doing over 10,000 deliveries month month over month consistently. So that's a good piece of news for them. With the improvements that are coming to NIO, I'm hoping that they continue to grow, they continue to see consistent sales. I think this is going to likely continue as time goes on. But then our next question is, how will this be affected by other factors, and what else is going to cause this to change? There's also some news right over here about what's going on in China. China has vowed to save its stock market, but investors are not as convinced. So we'll see how this ends up going. We're seeing a lot of selling going on because of geopolitical factors and other factors like that. But the Chinese Regulatory Commission has come out, and they basically vowed on Sunday to prevent abnormal market fluctuations, and they're going to help step in to help save their markets. So that could be a good piece of news. As far as NIO goes, I just want to mention that NIO may launch new variants with shorter uh, ranges for their existing models. So that's a big change from these regulatory practices that we're starting to see. And this is what their filing reports are basically showing. They may give us more variants of their same models with smaller ranges. Maybe they can become more affordable if they are using smaller battery packs for people who don't really drive as much. So this could be helpful and useful. If they could get better prices and good margins, this could help drive up sales. So this could be a good tactic. But for the time being, I'm going to be watching more about what's happening with the external side of things. NIO is taking a lot of hits because of things that are outside of its control. And if NIO ends up reducing its prices, this could be a lot more beneficial to them. So you can see right here, the ranges are right here listed for every single one of them. And with the range filings, you can see there's some changes right over here. So that could be interesting for them. We'll see if we get increases and decreases, and we'll just be very patient. Still some news coming out about how Chinese stocks and NIO had an awful January. That is as expected. Things are not expected to be that great right now, guys, especially because of the fact that many of these stocks are sinking, like XPeng, Li Auto, they're dropping. But that's because the entire EV sector is being affected by the high interest rates, demand issues, other things going on around the world, especially in China. And they also have, many crises that are going on over there, especially in the real estate sector. So with that going on, there's going to be hardships, it may last many more months, but I'm still confident that this is nothing more than just a buying opportunity, and NIO is going to make a full-on recovery. I still hold my view, and I still see this as a big opportunity. Besides that, everything else is essentially the same. Price price ratio is dropping. It's still down here. That basically shows relative weakness. That's still very weak. It's not really improving much. But Tuesdays tend to be green about 55% of the time, so we'll hope NIO tries to get a little bounce. And on top of this, the volume was about 45 million, well below average, so we'll see how that goes. What do I see on NIO's share price? Right now, we're on a strong downtrend. Every time we hit the 20 EMA, we're kind of rejecting. But I think there's a very good chance NIO is going to attempt to test this. So we might see NIO try to push back up towards 5.6 or at least 5.5, and it might reject again and come back down. So I think it's looking relatively weak still. I think that NIO is ultimately going to be getting very close to about $5 a share. I know it's very unfortunate, guys, but it is the truth. We're still on a very, very bearish looking trend if you look at the daily and also on the weekly. So it is what it is. We just have to accept this and just move on from there. So NIO might see a little pop and then drop. It's still looking kind of bearish, so just be careful. SPY, on the other hand, is kind of like trading sideways in this range. It's also starting to get tighter and tighter, so we might see it retrace a little bit again. Could backtest 491, then try to bounce again. So a little drop in bounce is very, very likely. We might see some sideways price action, but as long as we get that bounce, I think there's a good chance SPY is going to eventually try to get up to the higher levels. 500 is a very, very good target for the end of the week. I think SPY could reach that later on. We're still on an uptrend. We're still holding with 491. So we're going to be watching to see how this moves. You guys can see there were days where this thing sold off for a few days and continued higher. Right here, it kind of like consolidated and pushed higher. It's starting to sell off. So we're going to be watching for some kind of bounce. It's still possible. It's not necessarily dead or anything like that. So watch and see if we actually kind of like retrace a little bit more before we try to continue higher. SPY could still bounce later on. On the 4-hour time frame, Tesla's looking a little bit weak right now. We took a big hit after Tesla got some bad news involving Musk and such, and we got a rejection off the 4-hour 20 EMA. So, going to be looking for a rebound on Tesla in the morning, followed by more little downsides since we're getting lots of bad news. Tesla also kind of sold off and then bounced for the last couple of days. So, I think Tesla might kind of retest 182, sell off again into the 177 area, if not 175, then bounce and close very, very flat. I think we're going to get a very similar day tomorrow. This trend's looking kind of weak, so be careful, guys. The 4 hours showing some weakness. Tesla's not looking as strong, and there's going to be a risk of some downside. On the other hand, Apple's showing some strength. It's going to be fighting 188.5 at the 4-hour 200 EMA. If we break this, look for a push towards 190. The trend is showing that it might actually dip a little bit, then try to push higher. It's still favoring the bulls a bit more. I think Nvidia is going to try to push towards 700. We're actually at 698 right now. We could try to break 700 soon. Going to be looking for a nice run up. For the QQQ, this is still holding up nicely thanks to Nvidia. Might retest 427, then bounce and push up towards 430. Still not looking too bad. Well, that's it for the main five I typically go over, which are Aapl, Nvidia, SPY, the QQQ, and Tesla, and then NIO. So I think that SPY might see a little downside tomorrow, then it might bounce later on during the week. We could still get close to 500. Tesla might drop and bounce as well, but Aapl and other stocks are showing more strength. Aapl and Nvidia especially. Nvidia still looks strong. QQQ is showing more strength than SPY, so we'll be watching all of these very, very carefully. With that being said, for NIO, look for a little rebound in the morning. We could backtest 5.5 to 5.6 at the 20 EMA. Then we might reject and come back down. As we keep rejecting off of that, we might just close kind of flat. So with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Please have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.